Good morning and welcome. My name is Ann Harder, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the Leading Waco Women Seminar. I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Of course, this is put on by the Greater Waco Chamber of Commerce. Our sponsor at the platinum level is Ascension Providence. Our diamond sponsor is Cargill Protein. Our sapphire sponsors are JRBT, Extraco Banks, RBDR, and Kelly Realtors. Additional sponsors and contributors are Camille Johnson Realtors, the First National Bank of Central Texas, Waco Cardiology, Action Rental, and Green Life Interiors. Thank you all for being here with us for the Leading Waco Women Empowering Summit hosted by the Greater Waco Chamber of Commerce. Now, Leading Waco Women is a three-part series. It was created to bring female community leaders together to honor and celebrate one another while providing tools to help us grow into better women and leaders and mentors and servants. This series focuses on three overarching components of leadership: mentoring, empowering, and serving. Now, today's event marks the second in the 2021 series. We'll focus on empowering, this component of leadership that's so important. We'll hear from a panel of local business professionals. But before we go any further, I'd like to take a moment to give you a special thank you to the committee that has worked so very hard to make this vision a reality. It is a long list of amazing women, and I don't want to leave anyone out, but you know who you are, and so please know your efforts to make this event a huge success are very much appreciated. Now, I have the honor of introducing our panel for today's discussion. 5 amazing women who've planted their roots deep into the Waco community. They have a lot to share with you about empowering yourself, your family, and those around you. So we will start with Sheryl Victorian, the chief of the Waco Police Department. She is a native Texan and 28-year law enforcement professional. She was sworn in as the City of Waco's Chief of Police on March 15, 2021, after serving with the Houston Police Department for 28 years. Chief Victorian retired from the Houston PD as an assistant chief of the Patrol Region 2 Command, where she was responsible for the Clear Lake, Southeast, South Central, East Side, and Downtown Patrol divisions, as well as the Vehicular Crimes Division. Her law enforcement experience includes assignments in the Major Offenders, Homicide, Special Victims, Internal Affairs, Training, and the South Central and Southeast Patrol divisions. Chief Victorian has earned many awards and commendations for her service and dedication as a police professional. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Administration of Justice from Texas Southern University, a Master of Science degree in Criminal Justice from the University of Houston downtown, and a Doctor of Philosophy degree in Administration of Justice from Texas Southern University. Chief Victorian is a graduate of the Federal Bureau of Investigation's National Academy, a National Institute of Justice Law Enforcement Advancing Data and Science Scholar, and a current Fellow of American Leadership Forum's Class 47. She is also a Discover Leadership Master graduate and has been selected to participate in the Police Executive Research Forum's Senior Management Institute for Police in July of 2021. Chief Victorian has also participated in several other nationally recognized professional development and leadership programs. Chief Victorian is an adjunct professor at Southern New Hampshire University, where she teaches contemporary issues in criminal justice, ethics, and the graduate capstone course. In her spare time, Chief Victorian is a playwright and enjoys traveling, mentoring, teaching, and spending time with her family. Dr. Tyra M. Lindsey Warren is a clinical assistant professor of marketing at the Hankheimer School of Business at Baylor University. At Baylor, Dr. Lindsey Warren teaches advertising, digital marketing, and is the founder of the Baylor Business Advertising Summit. Dr. Lindsey Warren also has over 15 years of experience working in marketing and public relations in the corporate, performing arts, entertainment, and nonprofit arenas for such firms as Quincy Jones, David Salzman Entertainment, NBC, Creative Artists Agency, Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, and the Una World Group. She is also the founder and producer of the Waco Family and Faith International Film Festival. Dr. Lindsey Warren speaks nationally on topics of cross-cultural marketing and communications, multicultural fundraising, effective communications, and leadership. Her research streams are rooted in empowered storytelling, multicultural media and advertising, health edutainment, emotional contagion or word of mouth, and movies. Dr. Lindsey Warren is a published consumer behavior scholar with academic articles that have appeared in the Journal of Advertising Research, the Journal of Cultural and Marketing Strategy, the Journal of Academic Marketing Education, and in the book Entertainment Values, published by Palgrave, UK. Dr. Lindsey Warren received her Bachelor of Science in Radio, TV, Film and a certificate in musical theater from Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois. She also has a Master's of Business Administration with a concentration in marketing from the Peter F. Drucker School of Management at Claremont Graduate University in Claremont, California, and a PhD in marketing from Rutgers University in New Jersey. In her spare time, Dr. Lindsey Warren sings jazz professionally and has opened for Grammy Award-winning jazz musicians Kirk Whalum, Jonathan Butler, and Pieces of a Dream, just to name a few. Dr. Lindsey Warren is married to Sydney Warren, a successful entrepreneur, and both are new to the Waco community. Elisa is an attorney with the film of Rainey and Rainey in Waco. She's down there on the end practicing in elder law, estate planning, and special needs planning. Elisa is a certified elder law attorney and an adjunct professor at Baylor Law School teaching elder law. Elisa received her BBA from Baylor in 1993 and graduated from Baylor Law School in July of '94. She is a member of the Special Needs Alliance and past president of the Texas chapter of the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys. She serves as a council member for the State Bar of Texas's Real Estate, Probate, and Trust Law section. And sitting to her right is Abby Rhodes Head. Abby Rhodes Head is an entrepreneur and the co-founder of Head Hospitality, LLC. She and her husband, Omari Head, own and operate Cheddar Box, Franklin Avenue Mac House, yum, and Pop's Lemonade Company. She is a new mother to her daughter, Everett Stiles, and is currently learning how to balance entrepreneurship and family. She is passionate about the hospitality industry and seeks to create a product and atmosphere that consumers love. Although she grew up in Pensacola, Florida, she chose to pursue her entrepreneurial dreams in Waco. She often describes this community as a small town with big ideas and is proud to call Waco home. She says she's honored to serve the greatest city with the greatest people. And last but certainly not least, Genevieve Peele. Genevieve is a creative with a business degree from Baylor University, followed by 18 years of experience at number two at Hole in the Roof Marketing. I got to get this right. A local company with a national reach in quality apparel and promotional products. She's co-owner of a local retail shop, Congress Clothing, creating trendy Waco and Baylor tees since 2005. It's with this experience that Genevieve brings a unique perspective to growing female leaders who wear all the hats. She currently serves as board president for Jesus Said Love. That's a ministry empowering women survivors of exploitation and trafficking. She also serves on the Young Life Greater Waco Executive Board. Genevieve loves photography, abstract painting, and good food. She lives near downtown in Cameron Park with her entrepreneurial husband, 7-year-old son, and their 14-year-old border collie. So there you have our amazing panel of ladies. And so we're going to start off let's start off at the end with Elisa. How about, and work our way back this way. And this is for all of you. How did you choose your career field?
Well, I would say I chose mine pretty early. I knew from high school on that I would be eventually in law school and an attorney. So when I came to Baylor at that time, Baylor had what we call a 3-3 business law program. So you did 3 years of undergrad and then 3 years of law school. And so I just cruised on through that program, not really having any idea what an attorney actually did. So I just charged forward and figured it out as I went. I didn't have any attorneys in my family, but what I did know generally was that the law is flexible. So there was a wide range of practice areas I could take advantage of, even in-house counsel or something not related to the law directly. And at that point, because I didn't know much about where I was headed, I wanted the flexibility of being able to use my degree wherever. So I came out of Baylor Law School and was fortunate to find a position here in Waco with a firm. I stayed with them for a number of years and eventually was able to open a firm with my husband and have been really, really blessed by my practice and by the community that we decided to settle in.
Great, thank you. All right, Abby.
Yes, so since childhood, my imaginative play was usually centered around entrepreneurship. When I was little, I didn't know that. I remember my mom, she was so great. She'd let me pull all the groceries out of the pantry and put them on the dining room table. And my dad had this cool calculator that like actually printed paper. And so I'd sit there and play and pretend that I owned this shop. And entrepreneurship was in my heart from a young age. As I got older, I also realized I valued communication, and so I chose to pursue a degree in the field of speech pathology, and I actually did that for almost 10 years. Around in my early 30s, I realized there were a lot of things that I wanted to try before I got too old to, and entrepreneurship was one of those. And I had heard about this random place in another city that made grilled cheese sandwiches, and I thought, wow, I'm really inspired by this. And I always felt really drawn to hosting parties and serving people through food and hospitality. And so I decided I'd start a farmer's market stand in Waco, started selling grilled cheese sandwiches, and then it kind of just rolled into more, and I fell in love even more with entrepreneurship and hospitality and decided to exit my professional career that I had chosen at that point and try my hand at hospitality entrepreneurship. And so that's where we are today. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Chief Victorian, how did you choose law enforcement?
Well, it's really a long story, but we're going to give you the short version today. When I was younger, I used to be deathly afraid of police officers, and it wasn't because my family had any negative interactions with the police department. It's just, I don't know. My mom would take me to the corner store, and there was a sheriff's constable there, and she would try to get me to shake his hand, and I would fall out and embarrass her, literally. As a young lady, I would embarrass her. And then a few years later, I had a neighbor who told me that the police were looking for me, that the helicopter landed on our street, and they were looking for Sheryl and asked if she was a tourist. Now, I'm 7, 8 years old, so I didn't know any better. I thought the police asked for your sign. I didn't know. So every time the helicopter would pass, the flight path was over my mom's house. So every time it would pass, me and my friends would hide. We'd have to hide behind cars, trees, you name it. We hid because the cops were looking for Sheryl, who was a tourist. So, so a little bit after that, I lost my dad at 9 years old. He had a massive heart attack, and we were burying him out of the city of Houston. And so, I guess to take my focus off of what was really happening, I focused on the solo officers, or the motorcycle officers who were escorting us. And they were very compassionate and, empathetic to our family. And then as I watched them, block off the traffic and people move over and pull over on the side of the road, I just became enamored with what they were doing, the respect that they were getting. And so I started to change. So I started going in a different direction, and I'm going to date myself a little bit now because then Miami Vice came out. And I knew that I wanted to be an undercover cop. I loved the glamour of it, the thrill of it. I wanted to help people too, but I wanted to work undercover. And so when I went through high school, my girlfriend says that I used to dress like Miami Vice. I wore a blazer and jeans and thought I was Miami Vice. I don't remember that. But went to college, Got a degree in administration of justice, and as soon as I got that degree, went straight into policing with the Houston Police Department, and I haven't looked back since. I've had an amazing career, and glad that those officers got me to reflect. Something good came out of that day, so here I am.
Love it. Dr. Lindsey Warren.
Well, I grew up in the arts in Cincinnati, Ohio. My mom believed in exposing my brother and me, to everything that life had to offer, and I happened to be her artsy-fartsy child. And so I started ballet at 3 years old, piano. By the time I was 8 years old, I was a student at the School for Creative and Performing Arts, which is a very well-known arts school in Cincinnati. Such famous individuals that have come out of this program include Sarah Jessica Parker, a lot of Broadway stars, Drew and Nick Lachey, Rocky Carroll of CBS, NCIS, so many. And so we were being trained to graduate and go to Broadway and pursue a performing arts, as a profession. And so I started performing professionally as a music theater performer at 15 years old. And then when it was time to go to college and I got accepted into Northwestern, my father, who was one of the first African-American men at IBM, said, "Oh, no, you are not going to one of the top 10 universities, they called it the Harvard of the Midwest, and majoring in theater. You must major in medicine, law, and I was third in my class in high school, so I could have, but yet I was passionate about the arts. And I remember, now I'm dating myself, I remember seeing a show that year called the Ebony Jet Showcase. And at the time, it was produced by Ebony Magazine out of Chicago. And they had a special issue, or edition, I should say, about African Americans behind the camera. So directors and producers and things of that nature. And I learned so much about the profession in terms of it being very creative, but yet very business focused in terms of being a producer. And so I checked into that more, come to find out Northwestern was one of the top film schools in the country, next to NYU, UCLA, USC. And I sold in to my father that I'm going to go to school for producing for TV and film, and that's what I did. So after I graduated, I started my career in Hollywood at NBC, as you noted in the intro, and CAA, and spent the bulk of my time working for Quincy Jones, David Salzman Entertainment, being trained to be a studio TV film executive. Got the MBA at the same time, and all the while I was still performing, producer by day, performer by night, and because I needed to have both sides of my brain. I am equally yoked, right brain, left brain. And so, finished the master's degree in marketing and then just went down a whole marketing path because I learned about all the creativity in marketing and the vastness of being a marketing executive. And so started that route with Procter & Gamble, and then went to New York as the director of marketing for the United States Tennis Association, PR director for Alvin, Ailey American Dance Theater, and then the head of communications at Uniworld. And so that's how I fell into this career. And then when my mother got severely ill, I needed to adjust a little bit. And she said, you always have wanted a PhD, see if you can get it in marketing. And I said, school again? But I love school and just loved the PhD journey at Rutgers. And so now I am a professor, but I also consult, and I always say, and I research. So I always say the practitioner in me makes me a better educator. The educator makes me a better practitioner and research. And so to me, it's just all full circle where I'm using all of God's talents, to pursue my passions and live my passions.
Amazing. Genevieve, what led you to your career path?
Well, the truth is that my career sort of found me. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My dad owned a restaurant in San Antonio, was always around that, but definitely didn't want to go back into the food industry personally. So after Baylor, I had the opportunity to come on at Hole in the Roof. And so that was 18 years ago. And it beautifully married my passion for relationships and cultivating those, as well as creativity. So though I got a business degree at Baylor in information systems, I have not used that a day in my life. I was, constantly looking to try and take art classes and drawing and photography, but knew that the business degree made Dad happy, which is reflective of a few people here, I think. And so my opportunity at Hole in the Roof married those two things of relationships and creativity really, really well. And so it's been an interesting journey to learn every aspect of that business, from graphic design to sales to production as well. So it's been nice.
I'm going to stay with you, Genevieve. Tell us about a business strategy that you believe have implemented well that has resulted in empowering other women.
Well, at Hole in the Roof, we try to empower all of our employees, either gender, to have a voice. Being in a small business, sometimes that's really easy, and sometimes that's kind of difficult because you may not feel confident about your idea or your contribution that you have. So we've always, had kind of an open floor, hey, pitch in here during this meeting. And sometimes I can see this person's thinking about something, but they're not contributing. And I will circle back with them and go, hey, I saw you thinking during that meeting. Is there anything you wanna say now? And really just encourage that voice, encourage those ideas. And we do have majority women in our professional roles. So fortunately that works out that I get to encourage their voices, encourage and tell them hey, you are smart and wise and you know what you're doing, and I need your voice, in our space. So please share it.
Dr. Lindsey Warren, tell us about a time where you were not empowered in a situation, and how did you work through that?
For me, you all are lucky that I'm a consumer behavior scholar who studies empowerment. So the emotion of empowerment within an advertising and marketing context. So I really love the emotion in terms of it being very multi-dimensional. It has elements of encouragement, motivation, even altruism. And so when I was preparing for this question, I thought I would share with you about one experience that I had working as the public relations director for Alvin, Ailey American Dance Theater. As I shared, I grew up in the arts, and when I was 13, I studied at the Ailey School in New York City. So when the opportunity came about for me to work at Alvin Ailey, my parents and all my friends who really knew me thought this was a dream job. Oh my gosh, you can stop, Tyra. You don't need to work for anybody else. This is the dream job. And so put all that I had into the role and loved it and was very passionate about it. However, within most creative industries, and Anne, you and I have talked about this a little bit, they're not the most kind, in terms of how they manage people, how they treat people. And although with Ailey, and this wasn't my first position or experience being in an abusive environment mentally and emotionally, although we were putting such wonderful art on stage behind the scenes and working for dance, which is a hard discipline within itself, just to be a dancer, but working in the business of dance was extremely rough. And maybe by 8-9 months in, I started getting sick. My hair was falling out. I would leave work after 10, 12-hour days, go pick up my car at the valet, and throw up every day. And I have learned from that experience, when a job is, impacting your health in a negative way, that's not good for you. That's not good for you at all. And when you're working for individuals who are just having a scarcity mentality, don't necessarily know how to manage people, that's not good or empowering either. And so soon thereafter, I got enough nerve, because this was my early 30s, to kind of stand up for myself with the executive director and ask for a better compensation package, just things that I had at other places. But because this was the dream job, I sacrificed and just wanted this dream job. And so when my immediate supervisor found out about this meeting, she pulls me into her office, and I'll never forget this. She said, I heard about, you meeting with Sharon, and don't you know, Tyra, I didn't hire you to think, I hired you because you were Black. And this is real life. This is real life. And this was in the early 2000s. So it's not like this happened in the 70s or 80s, or this is now that people still aren't respecting women or women of color in the most appropriate way. So I have since learned from that experience, always make people value yourself, make sure you're working in healthy environments with a healthy culture. And, as I did at Ailey, always continue to stand up for myself and others. But that's the beauty of empowerment, right? Even though you may not be empowered in your environment, you can still empower yourself, right? And do wonderful things. So when one door closes, like the Ailey door, another beautiful and better door opened next.
Chief Victorian, what types of challenges have you faced as a female in your career field, and how do you overcome them?
That's a great question. I think primarily being underestimated as a female in a male-dominated profession. Law enforcement across the country, females only make up 12% of law enforcement officers. Chiefs of police make up 3%. African Americans, females, I'm sure is maybe 0.01% of that. So being a female, an African American female in this industry and being underestimated are challenges that I faced since I became a police officer. There were many ladies who became police officers before me that paved the way and went through some terrible things before I even got here. But when I first became a police officer, I remember, and I don't think this was intentional, I remember my first male partner on night shift, and I was just finishing the program, the training program, and after you finish the program, you still have to ride with somebody for 6 months before you have to ride by yourself. And so I had to ride with him for about 6 months, and I remember our first couple of weeks, we would respond to calls, and he would say, I got it, you just stay in the car. I got it. And I didn't think anything. I thought he was trying to be a gentleman. And then all of a sudden, I was like, no, I'm a police officer. I'm not going to learn anything by sitting in the car. I'm getting out of the car. And sure enough, the scene that we were on was a domestic scene, and this gentleman, I walked in, he and this gentleman were going toe to toe. And then after I walked in, he cursed my partner, and he looked at me and said, I'm sorry, ma'am. And he and they were going toe to toe, and I was like, oh, I have an opportunity here. And so I stepped in and de-escalated the situation as a female, and some other things went on that night, but I think he saw my value at that point, and I've utilized that ever since, and that's just a story that I will never forget. And then even as a leader, females, they have stereotypes of females in law enforcement, and we come with a certain level of empathy and compassion, but we also know when we need to draw the line. I am not one that, don't take my kindness for weakness. Yeah, you may see me smiling all the time, but just don't cross the line. And so I think when you walk into a room and you're underestimated, and you always feel like, in this profession, I've always felt like I've had to prove myself. So I knew that if everybody had a master's degree, I had to go and get a PhD. I always felt like I had to do the extra to prove. I had to make more rests. I had to work more undercover deals. I had to do more. And it has essentially paid off, but I'm hoping there comes a day that, we will really be challenged by our minds and what we have contributed, as opposed to having to do that little extra to get those few extra points. So being underestimated.
Thank you. Abby, tell us about a challenge you have faced in your business role, and how did or do you address that challenge?
Yeah, that's a great question. I am a new mom. I have a 6-month-old at home. I'm an older new mom too, because I had her at 37. And I naively went into having a child thinking like, oh, she's going to be born 2 months later. We're going to hop back in, do the business world again. And I quickly learned 2 things. One, I didn't want to. I actually really love spending time with Everett and staying home with her. It's just such a joy. And then 2, I wasn't physically, emotionally, mentally prepared to go back to work. And we had done a lot of hard work before I even went on maternity leave to make sure our team was covered, our businesses were covered. And so I didn't really need to necessarily. But one of the things now this mompreneur life, I'm sure I picked that up from some social media post or something, but being a mom and an entrepreneur, it is a challenge. I have a business baby and I have a real life, cute, adorable little baby. And balancing how do I like effectively care for both of those things because I care about them so much. That has been a really big challenge. And I wouldn't say that I have found like I haven't arrived yet. Let's say it that way. And it's still kind of a challenge almost daily, like choices I have to make. But one thing that seems a little counterintuitive, but I have found has been the most impactful for me personally as a woman, and then as a mom, as a wife, and a business owner, is to invest in myself. It sounds so funny, but I've never done that. I've never taken the time to really invest in myself. And 2 practical things that I've done since Everett was born is, one, I joined a cohort of other business women here in Waco, and they are a phenomenal group of women, and I get to go to this 4-hour meeting once a month, and they don't need anything from me. I don't have to I can sit there and just listen the whole time, and that's all that's expected, you know. But I have found that has been so helpful for me to face anything that comes when I walk out of that room, and it I don't know, it just gives me energy for the whole month, and also helps me make decisions and jump in and do things that I wouldn't have done before. Real quickly, one example of this is y'all have probably seen all over everywhere, now hiring signs everywhere. We're in I heard someone talk about in the service industry, it's kind of like a second pandemic for us. People are coming back out in record numbers and to patron your businesses, and then people are not coming out in record numbers to work there and serve your customers. So we've had that challenge, and I kept coming up against it and brought it to the cohort of women, and they said, hey, what do you think about maybe hiring an HR consultant? Like, would you consider that? And immediately 3 reasons came up. No, it's too expensive. I don't want to have to tell someone what our company culture is. I don't want someone else to take over the interview process and hiring. And the more they asked me questions, I kind of softened. Ultimately, we ended up hiring Elaine with Victory Employer Services. She's phenomenal and has helped us so much. And if I wouldn't have given myself to that group, our business would still be struggling. And we're still on it's an uphill battle to get people staff our teams the way we want them to be staffed. But that moment of them just giving me space to challenge my own preconceived notions about things really has impacted our business a lot. And then one other practical, just a way of investing in myself. This seems kind of obvious, but my daughter and I go on walks every day. We do hour to an hour and a half of walking, and it's literally just to give me space to clear my mind and have a clean slate for processing the information that I need to for the day, whether that's about how to best parent Everett or that is how to best lead our team. But it's such a simple thing, and it has proven so successful. So, and just in summation, I think we as women often won't invest in ourselves because whatever reason, we don't think we're worth it. We don't want to give the time. We don't invest the money, et cetera. But it has been such a catalyst for change in our business by me taking that time. So I just encourage everyone to invest in yourself when challenges arise. It really makes a difference. So.
Elisa, how have you been able to utilize your position as an attorney to empower those around you? And if you can, provide an example of someone you've been able to help or empower along the way.
Well, I would like to start just by making a point, and this is purely my perspective, but I keep hearing bits and pieces of it from all of you, that I don't think we can ignore that there is a difference between men and women. And I think for many years we spent all this effort to try to erase any kind of distinction between the needs or the preferences or the behavior of men and women. And at least from my perspective, I can tell you there's a very definite difference between my perspective on things and my husband's. And I happen to be law partners and business partners with my husband, so I see his up close day by day and every night. But I personally recognize a difference between the needs of men and women in many cases. But I have been so fortunate through my practice and through my professional interactions with colleagues to, in my view, make a big difference in empowering women in various perspectives. First and foremost with clients, again, our practice is elder law, and so that includes estate planning, probate work after someone's passed away, guardianship in the event someone needs a court-appointed guardian to take care of decisions for them. And very often the individual we're working with is the wife. Maybe the wife who never handled the business of the family, never handled the investments of the family, and suddenly finds her husband deceased or disabled in a way that she's thrust into a role she never faced before. And so we often see clients, men and women, at their most vulnerable, their most emotional, their most raw. And so it's very gratifying to be able to work with folks to work through those processes for them. And in the case of estate planning, for them to recognize they have a voice in their future. So often people are hesitant to engage in estate planning because they think they're turning things over. I'm like, oh no, this is your choice to give your preferences, for you to speak, for you to set the roadmap that everybody else now has to follow. So kind of changing that perspective, I think, is important for a lot of clients. I know that that's not universal in business, but it's been a gratifying part of our practice. But then also being a business owner, our staff my husband is the only male in our practice, and so we have a number of legal assistants, a marketing professional, accounting, and so I've had the privilege of working with a lot of really amazing women over the years, and I hope I've had some small measure in helping them find their paths in their life or their careers. But again, telling people they have a voice and giving them the courage to have a voice and exercise that voice. I had one staff person who every time she approached was, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I mean, and I think some of us have that approach of kind of being timid, and it took months of do not apologize when you walk through that door. And she has grown to be a really, really dynamic, essential part of our firm. And you love to see that in young women and women of all ages to find their voice and to exercise it.
Good. This next question is for all of you, and we'll start here with Genevieve. Give us an example of how someone has empowered you, which in turn helped you to get where you are today.
Well, I'm going to go with two people. One, my mom, and two, my brother-in-law, who is also my boss, Joel. So my mom, I think early on, I learned to be independent. That was probably being the oldest of three kids in 5 years, will kind of allow you to do that. But also she empowered me to help make decisions, whether it was, running for an office in high school or even applying to Baylor. She was like, oh, you got your application done. That's great. Like, do you need any help? I was like, no, I think I got it. So she was always there, my cheerleader. I knew she was constantly there to support me, but she didn't hold my hand along the way. And she trusted me to make those decisions. And I think early on for me, like someone believing that I could do it gave me the confidence to move forward there. She also spoke a lot about codependence and some, emotional equity, like before those things were really like buzzwords. And so it allowed me throughout my life to set and be aware of healthy boundaries in relationships, whether it was dating or marriage or friends or even in business. And so I think that was really valuable. And then Joel is my brother-in-law, who is also my boss. And it's been that way for 18 years. And oftentimes I find myself the only female in the room, whether that be at a sales meeting or in leadership or whatever that is. And he has never once made me feel like, oh yeah, you don't need to be here. Or he's always said, hey, what do you think? Like, I've always had a voice with him. He has trusted me to spearhead marketing strategies. He's trusted me to lead sales teams, to create our production facility. Like, there's been so much trust there. And so he's really like spurred me on in all those things.
For me, I have to say my academic father, Dr. Jerome Williams, who was the provost at Rutgers University, and he recruited me to Rutgers. I primarily at Baylor teach seniors, marketing majors, and there is a point in the semester, because I strongly feel passionate about preparing them for what awaits them after they graduate the corporate world, and I teach them about this concept of mentors versus sponsors. Because, we hear mentors all the time, but we don't necessarily hear about the concept of sponsorship in business, which can be even more impactful than a mentor. And while I've had tons of mentors throughout my life, Dr. Williams has been my only sponsor. So in that, he guided me, as a doc student, and gave me advice, of course. But what makes the difference for a sponsor is that when he was in rooms that I'm, nowhere near, he had me on his mind for opportunities to extend my research, opportunities to present my research, whether in Denmark or Scotland or whatever the case may be, opportunities to win research awards or things of that nature. The sponsor is truly defined as a C-suite individual who can really positively have an impact on one's career financially, right? And to me, Dr. Williams was that person who empowered me, when I got married in my doctoral program. He and his wife came to the wedding. So it's so funny. At my wedding, I have a picture with my real father and my academic father. And then at my PhD graduation, I have another picture of my real father and my academic father. But that is so rare, that someone is willing to invest in you, the full you, the mind, body, spirit you, and cares about you. Even after I graduated, he was still on me. When are you getting that research paper submitted? When is that? When am I going to see you at a conference? And then one year, because I was just so exhausted after graduating with my PhD, he calls me up and says, "You want to go to Paris? You want to present some research in Paris?" And I said, okay. But that is someone, outside of my mother, we can all, we love moms. I love my mother. But next to my mom, Dr. Jerome Williams, who is no longer with us now, is someone who has empowered me and continues to empower me. And I work every day standing on his shoulders to help my students, empower them, be sponsors to them, working beyond mentorship, but being sponsors to them and, helping them soar in life.
Yeah, I know you do. Chief Victorian.
So I have a couple as well. Of course, my first would be my mom. I lost my mom last year, but she was the one. I was the third child and the third girl, and she was always the one that allowed me to soar and have that independence and told me I could do whatever I wanted to do or be whoever I wanted to be. So I'm grateful to her. A second person has nothing to do with law enforcement. It has to do with my creative side and being a playwright. One of my prayer partners from a very long time ago, I'd written this play called The Wisdom of God's Women, and I did the directing. I wrote it. I did the directing, and the night that it was performed, I sat on the front row like I'd never seen it before in my life, because inside of me, I'm thinking, I write that? Did who? And so when it was over, I never liked to be in the front. You didn't have to acknowledge me. As long as somebody else didn't take credit for my work, you didn't have to say my name. And I was okay with that. And she said, enough is enough. And she walked over to me, put the mic in my face and was like, no, you go up there. And so she taught me the power of ownership and taking credit for my talent. And that, ended up following me in my career path as a law enforcement officer. At the time, I was an officer, and when I promoted to sergeant, I learned to, when I did great things or I did, impacted something and made a difference in something, to take ownership for it and not to be afraid to stand out front and give myself credit. Instead of being humble and in the background, it was just something that she taught me to do. And so, it took some years to manifest to where it is now, but it was something that has impacted my life tremendously, and I would likely not be where I am today had she not had that impact on my life.
All right, Abby.
Yeah, so it's fun to look back and see this like really beautiful woven tapestry of. There's been multiple moments in our lives. We're talking about our parents or our moms, and I mentioned earlier my mom and dad letting me just pull all the groceries out on the table and explore that part of my brain, And I think it started there, and then as time goes on, we fast forward, and when I started the grilled cheese stand at the farmers market, it actually was going pretty well. It was working, and I was still working full time, and I was really surprised by that, and had this opportunity to do this catering that then led to an invitation to start a food truck and open it at Magnolia downtown. And I was telling these ladies earlier, I had said I will never own a food truck. It is too much work. But then when that opportunity was put in front of me, I thought, well, someone believes in this. Like, okay, let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. And so that was a moment of empowering. And then at the time I was working, it was called Hope Therapy at that time. Now there's a couple of things, but Elite Therapy Center, Heather Field and Lori Cole were my bosses there. And if you want to be around empowering women, you should meet Heather Field and Lori Cole because they are amazing. But I brought this opportunity to Heather. We sat down in my therapy room, the tiny little table. It's like this tall, and the chairs are half the size, and we're sitting there in these little kid chairs, and I just have such a vivid memory of her. I told her the opportunity, and she looked at me, someone who had been a long-time employee, someone she'd have to replace, someone who had invested wholeheartedly in their company, and she looked at me and said, you have to do this, and you have to quit your job. And like for me, I was like, wait, I will, but that will negatively impact you. And it brings tears to my eyes a little bit, because we sat there and she just spoke so much truth and empowered me to, hey, let's take this risk. Let's do it. I'm for you. We are for you. You're going to quit your job and you're going to do this. And here we are today. I mean, it's like 7 years later, and this is what we're doing. And I'm living a dream I'd had since childhood that started on that table, at my parents' house. And so it's definitely a huge moment of empowerment for me. So,
Elisa.
Well, you could call him empowering, or you could call him bossy. And I think both would apply, but probably my husband has been a huge influence on me in terms of making me stretch my comfort zone beyond where I would have naturally placed it if it were just up to me. So again, we're both attorneys. We started our practice, we went to law school together, but we practiced separately and then later combined our practices. And he is definitely the more entrepreneurial of the two of us, and always thinking of opportunities, always wanting to make it as much, often with professional practices, so attorneys, doctors, dentists, it was more of a professional practice and not a business. So you weren't advertising per se or preparing promotional items and such as another business might. And he is much more inclined that direction, and much more focused on getting out and marketing and meeting people and doing things, where I'm the type who would naturally just be in the background and let other people take the credit. So he has definitely pushed me, sometimes willingly and sometimes against my wishes, to challenge myself, and it has definitely paid off for me and for him and for our family. And I've had the pleasure of and the honor of being part of the Junior League of Waco. And it really is an amazing, amazing group of women. And I had one friend one day at church who said, "Why aren't you in the Junior League?" And I said, "Well, I thought it was for the wives of the attorneys, not for the attorneys. I was placing a boundary on myself." And she was an attorney. She said, "Well, what about me?" So she just challenged me in a way that I wouldn't have thought to do, and joined them, and had a great, great experience. But my point there is I met people who I would not naturally have met. I've met these ladies, and I've never crossed paths with them before, and we had lunch before we came on, and I wish it had been twice as long because I enjoyed the visit. But just always stretching yourself to meet new people, expand your reach, not for personal gain. The more you give, the more you gain personally, even though that's not the goal from it, but just to expand, always learn, always grow, and that's just the best way to empower yourself and those around you.
That's right. Dr. Lindsey Warren, this question is for you. What does success look like?
Well, a couple years ago, when I was living in New York, I had the honor of participating in a program called Leadership Westchester, produced by the United Way of New York. And one of the assignments after this 15-month program was for each of us to create our personal mission, or create this mission statement that aligned our profession and personal goals. And so my mission is to creatively communicate so that I may touch lives. And that's what success looks like for me. Every day, I have to be creatively communicating in some way to touch lives. And touch could mean, it could be expanded upon in terms of educate, empower, enlighten. But for the purpose of that exercise, the mission statement had to be 10 words or less. And it's hard to create a mission statement 10 words or less. And so that's what success looks like to me, to creatively communicate so that I may touch lives. If I'm not doing that every day, I'm off, so being on mission, being on purpose is very important to me and what success looks like. Making sure, I'm in alignment, mind, body, spirit alignment, and passionate about everything that I'm doing, as well as being the change that I seek. I learned that too a few years ago. Stop waiting for other people to do whatever. That's actually, as you know, how I created the Waco Family and Faith International Film Festival. Just being the change that you seek also is a part of the definition for success for me.
Chief Victorian, what do you think makes a good leader?
So there's this quote that I love by John C. Maxwell: leaders know the way, they go the way, and they show the way. And knowing the way means that you have a vision. Going the way is that you stay on the path of that vision. But the most important part of that quote to me is showing the way. And showing the way involves showing others the path and then letting them create their own path based on that. I believe in preparing others, especially in this field, since we represent, only a small percentage of police officers, making sure that I'm preparing the next generation, professional development, growth, mentoring, coaching. I make sure that I'm accessible. I have an open door policy, which means that I don't get a lot of work done until after hours because, and I encourage our officers to come by. If you're on 8, that's the Florida rule. If you're on 8 and I'm there and my door is open, feel free to stop by. And then we have to be mindful as leaders too, to pay attention to those that work with us, those that work for us, those that may not see the potential that they have, and let's encourage them to develop that potential. But I think leaders know the way, they go the way, and then most importantly, they show the way.
Great. Genevieve, how do you balance your career, passions, and your personal life?
Balancing my careers, my passions, and my personal life. I don't. Balance is defined by, equal weight. And the truth is every day's different. and no day is perfectly balanced. So for me, that's some days that I need to work late. Some days that means leaving work and going home to build Legos or play Pokemon with my child, which Pokemon has resurged, and it's very interesting. Sometimes that's, asking for space, to echo what these other women have said, like advocating for what you need. I can't give anything to anybody if I don't have some space for myself. And so asking for that time, my husband is such a great supporter of that. And if I ask for it, like, he makes it happen. My mom living next door also helps, and she's a joy and delight. But I think figuring out what I need. So being as self-aware as I can be, where it's, okay, I need some alone time, or I need some relationship time, or I need to go for a walk, or I need to sit and paint late night, which, whatever it is to fill myself up so that I can, in turn, invest in my family, in my community, and in the work that I love.
Elisa, how do you differentiate yourself in your field? Is empowerment involved in this process?
Well, I picture my field kind of in two different ways. In the legal field in Waco, our firm is kind of a niche firm with elder law, and that move away from a general practice, which is much more of what you see in a community our size typically, and specifically in Waco, generally everybody does some of everything. And as James and I recognized how much we enjoyed elder law and what a need there was in the community, we kind of started pairing off other practice areas, which was a huge leap of faith. It's not as big a leap of faith as, as yours, but I mean, to finally say, okay, we're not going to do that at all, and we're not going to do that at all. And if they call, we're going to say, nope, but we'll refer you to someone. That's really difficult. But we did it, and we have been very blessed and very rewarded. We've had the privilege of being able to choose what we really enjoy and what we really excel at, and focusing on that. And then also within the elder law community overall, that practice area is very nice in that attorneys throughout the state, throughout the country, network very nicely. And so I had the privilege probably 10 years ago of starting to teach as an adjunct at the law school, teaching elder law, and have found that to be extremely rewarding. You are a better practitioner if you're a teacher as well. Dr. Warren pointed that out earlier, and that was probably one of the most impactful things in my practice, was to start teaching it and realizing, oh, there are little holes in what I thought I knew, and here we got to plug them in. So using that opportunity to empower other students, to improve my own practice. And then I had the opportunity to start teaching at continuing education conferences throughout the state. So I do speak a fair bit, although the last year with COVID has been a little off with that. But you do. The more you stretch yourself, the more you grow, the more you realize, I can do this. Even if I didn't think I could when I said yes, somehow I figure out how to do it along the way. So it has been empowering for me and for the others who I've had the privilege of teaching, I hope.
Very good. Abby, give us an example of how you have empowered others, and what was the benefit to your personal and professional life?
That's a really difficult question. So what I chose to do is I went to our leadership team and asked them, instead of trying to come up with what moments I thought I empowered people. And so I got some feedback from our three of our main leaders. And it was actually helpful for me to hear this, you don't get feedback a lot when you're leading people. And so it was just really healthy to hear from them. And it basically boiled down to, one of the leaders mentioned that when I'm transparent about what's going on in the business, so I'm transparent about what our big picture goals are and vision is, it gives her space to know how to make decisions. So she doesn't have to check in with me all the time, but she feels like that confidence of this, I know this is where we're going, or this is what's going on. and she feels empowered to make decisions to benefit the business. Another one of our leaders, she mentioned that there's a lot of she's in this, by the way. We have a lot of female leaders in our business. But she just mentioned that when I communicate things to her, like, I trust you, I trust your decision making, you're going to make the right decision on this, I know you will. That just gives her, again, confidence to make decisions and not have to check in with me all the time and care for our staff and our customers really well. And then the last leader, also a female, she just mentioned that when I give her space to try something, when I give her space to problem solve, give her space to approach maybe an HR situation that's new to her, she feels empowered because she gets to grow and learn more about herself, but also learn how to approach that situation if she hasn't in the future. So I think the confidence with which they all seem to operate, that benefits not only professionally, obviously it benefits our business. I can be out of maternity leave and feel like they are caring for our staff and our customers and the business as a whole. I can be confident in that, but it also does help move our business forward. I think over the past, obviously, like we mentioned, COVID in the food and beverage industry has been a real challenge. And one of our locations was shut down for 9 months, and then our other location did better somehow because we have a drive-thru, I think. But they have, even in the midst of this difficult situation where I was out of it, part of it, because I had a baby, the confidence that they have has helped our business to not only daily operate the way it's supposed to, but even move forward and grow. And I feel so proud of them for that. They're doing such a good job. So I don't know if that's really an example of a one-time thing, but I liked getting the feedback from them to hear. So.
Good. All right, this next question is for all of you. Ladies, take 2 minutes and give us one tangible piece of advice on how to use empowerment to better ourselves and our community. So let's start with Genevieve.
Okay. Well, empowerment is giving people choices and options and feeling, confident about the decisions that they're making. And I've found that encouraging others, getting out there, encouraging your sister, encouraging your girlfriend, or your coworker that they're doing a good job. Maybe encouraging a parent that they don't have to be perfect at all moments and that it's hard. Encouraging that coworker to, that they are doing a great job, or what you see they're gifted and talented in. Hey, you're really good at this. Please keep doing that. Or can you help me with this? I just think that those positive words really sink in. They mean a lot. And I think the more encouraging we can do to our community, that I think the more we'll all grow and be more positive.
Dr. Lindsey Warren.
As an empowerment scholar, I have said this for many, many years, even before I came to Baylor, and to let your light shine. Right. And I joke with Jason Cook, who's the chief marketing officer at Baylor, that they owe me some residuals for the bright lights of messaging. But I say this to my students on the first day, if you remember nothing from me from this entire semester, always remember to let your light, your brilliance, your uniqueness, your beauty, your essence and more shine in all that you do. And I think that's the advice that I would give to everyone who is watching, because that wasn't necessarily given to me, when I was coming up. And there's so often times that I have learned throughout life that you can have people all around you, even your own family members, who try to dim your light, block your light, do everything so your light does not shine. And I have that even in my own family. And so being able to muster up, that can-do power, which is also a beautiful dimension of the emotion of empowerment, to be able to tell yourself and encourage yourself and motivate yourself to let your light shine at all times is imperative for us as women, as women of color. We have to be able to encourage each other as well as encourage ourselves to let our lights shine.
I want to say amen. Chief Victorian.
Yes, ma'am. I would say once you find your passion, stay the course. Don't be distracted. Don't let anything distract you. Live and breathe whatever that passion is, and then make sure that you know thyself. To thy own self be true. Understand your strengths, understand your weaknesses. Never stop growing. Every opportunity that you have to develop and grow professionally, make sure that you're taking advantage of those opportunities. And lastly, make sure you're bringing somebody with you.
Abby.
Yeah, so I have this song lyric from, I don't know, when I was in high school. It's probably a gospel song. It says, "Each one reach one." It's more referring to the church, but I was thinking about that as like when I think about community empowerment, because it's kind of a new thought to me. I've learned, like, yeah, it's just a new thought. But I was thinking about each one reach one, and how I've had, one person or we just have a handful of people who invest in us and empower us, and how much change and what a catalyst that can be. And then if we keep that focus of, okay, well, who can I go and empower? It can feel a little uncomfortable to me, at least, to think I could empower anyone. But we need to get over that. I need to get past that. And like, who can I invest in to help empower them for whatever that looks like? So if everyone in the community is kind of investing in someone else, I feel like the community becomes a force to be reckoned with. Like, of course, the community will be empowered if we're all doing a little bit of our part. And at the beginning, you mentioned in my bio that I talk about Waco being a small town with big ideas. And my husband and I, we chose to stay here. He's from Oklahoma, I'm from Florida. But as I was thinking about this question, I thought, man, Waco is already a pretty empowered community. And that's probably why I think it's a small town with big ideas. We don't have a ton of people here, but we have a ton of oomph, and people do things with their whole hearts. And it's just such a great community to be in. And we're already kind of on that trajectory as a community of empowered people. And I think that's why it's so great to be an entrepreneur in this city as well, because there's so much support. So we're already doing a great job, Waco, of empowering each other, but let's keep doing it. That each one, reach one, I think is really powerful.
Waco, we have a ton of oomph. I'm going with that one. I love it. Elisa.
New slogan, oomph. Well, I think we need to focus both on our opportunities to empower our colleagues, even our competitors. In networking with other professionals, I often find that we're sharing inside ideas, so to speak, with people who might be our competitors, but I have never, ever found my own business diminished by what I shared with a colleague. Maybe it grows their practice, but it's never shrunk my own. And if anything, it increases the esteem that you share with each other. So always be willing to share that growth opportunity with colleagues and competitors, and with employees. I read a lot of business books, and so one gem, I always think if I can come out of this book with one thing that I remember and carry forward, then that paid off. But one is, your customers are only as happy as your employees are. And so the opportunity to increase the independence, so to speak, and the empowerment of your employees, give them a vested interest in growing and finding opportunities to serve your customers, that's going to increase the contentment, the satisfaction of the customers. It just feeds off itself up and down the entire chain. And so it really makes your job, your practice, your life so much more enjoyable.
All right, I love this next question, and we've seen glimpses of it already, but the question is, what is your why? And we'll start with Genevieve.
Okay, my why is, so I get really jazzed. I believe that God has created each of us with unique talents and gifts and abilities. And so when I can be, a part of helping someone discover what those are, or encourage someone with what those are, I just get really excited. And it's an ongoing discovery. The things I discovered 10 years ago are still with me, and then I'm like, oh wait, I can do that too, and it's fun. And then there's what is her name? It's Stephanie Hewitt. She is a vocational coach. And she had this phrase that I read, and I loved it. She said she calls herself the midwife to the imago Dei of others. And so imago Dei meaning the image of God. And so the idea that you're assisting people with finding the image of God inside themselves. Like, it's such a sacred space, and it's so special, and it gives me a lot of energy to move throughout the day when I can encourage our employees, to find out what they're really good at, or even walking through life with friends and people in the community or other business leaders. It gives me a lot of energy. Yeah.
Dr. Lindsey Warren.
At this stage in my life, I am in a legacy building mindset. So everything that I do and touch and contribute to, I am of the mindset that I am building a legacy, for myself, my husband and myself, my family, to help that next generation. At Baylor, specifically with my students, I have continued to say that I am on a mission to create and build up responsible, socially conscious, creative business professionals. So all the crazy people that I worked for in Hollywood and New York, I'm not building those. I'm building better business people than they were, and that is my why. I get up every day excited, to see my students, because that's our covenant with you, if you will. They know what I'm here for them. And so we both have to show up in a way that is meaningful. And then it just also extends into other things that I do. My work with my clients across the country, my research, what, we do with the film festival. We show up in a way to make a positive difference and positive change. And to be able to do that every day and use the talents that God has given me. And as I shared with you on your show, that when it's time, to meet St. Gabriel or whoever I'm going to meet at the pearly gates, I want God to say, oh my gosh, Tyra, you didn't waste not one thing that I gave you, and truly job well done.
All right, Chief Victorian.
Thank you. So my why has changed as I matured in the law enforcement profession. As I said initially, I wanted to work undercover and put everybody in jail. All the bad guys had to go, and it wasn't until I realized that we could not arrest our way out of everything, that the community service of our protect and serve mantra really had just as much of an impact as it did with arresting people. So my why today is to make sure people always say these are challenging times in law enforcement. And I know that everybody probably has a different perspective on what that means, but I think it's a time of opportunity. And it's a time of opportunity for me as a police chief to make sure that my officers understand the importance of community policing and relational policing, and building that emotional capital with our communities and that engagement with our communities in order to build trust. So my why now is to make sure that I'm able to be in that middle and bridge that gap, and prepare my officers and a little sooner than what I got, to let them know that it's just as important to make sure that we are using opportunities of prevention and intervention, and connecting with our communities in order to build that trust.
Abby, what is your why?
Yeah, so Head Hospitality, our vision statement is pretty simple. It's just to create, a product and atmosphere that customers love. And when I think about that, even as it translates to like my personal life, that's just kind of always what's been my heartbeat. I want people to always be comfortable. I want people to always enjoy themselves. If we're producing a product for someone, I want them to really enjoy it. And I just want to create that. So I really do think that that's my wife or kind of everything I do when I'm at home with my daughter. I want the atmosphere to feel safe, secure, loving, fun. She's starting to eat now, so I want her to like what she's eating, you know. But with my friend groups, it's that way. With my husband, it's that way. With our business and our staff, it's that way. I want them to love where they work. So just creating that atmosphere that people are going to love to participate, to be a part of. Really, it's so simple, but that's really my why. I feel like it translates to all the facets of my life. So,
Elisa.
Our mission is to make a meaningful difference in our clients' lives every day. We have that on a very ragged piece of paper over the copy machine, so people hopefully read it at least once a day. But much like law enforcement at times, attorneys suffer an image problem sometimes. Either people think we're scoundrels and devious, or unapproachable and intimidating. I mean, it's one or the other. So many times clients come in, they've never been to an attorney's office. They're very nervous, they're stuttery, they don't know how to approach issues. And we always just want to create an environment where they're comfortable, they can be their most vulnerable, they're feeling it, they need to be able to express it, and we can show them how we can help them in real ways. And sometimes that's just being human and talking and not giving them a legal solution, but just letting them know that they're not alone through the process.
All right. For all of you again, Elisa, let's start with you and work our way this way for something different. What makes you feel valued and appreciated?
I'll give you a very, almost a silly answer, but it was meaningful. When I came out of law school, I had the privilege of working with a firm here in town and doing what I would call insurance defense primarily. So if there was a lawsuit, an insurer hired an attorney to represent the insured, like in a car wreck. That was me. So I was just representing someone who had been sued in some regard. And I enjoyed that work. I really, really enjoyed my colleagues, and they were very empowering. I was the sole female at that firm, but never felt diminished at all in that role. Loved that firm. But what really made a difference was being able to move into an area of practice that I was passionate about. And they gave me the opportunity to do that, the area for growth. And so that really, really made the difference for me.
All right, Abby.
yeah, to reference something Chief Victorian said, she talked about really knowing yourself, like know your strengths and weaknesses, all those things. And I feel a little deficient in this. I feel like I'm just catching up to that in the past few years. So I recently have learned I feel so valued if people just ask me questions. And if people give me feedback. I know it seems kind of like most people who work with you probably aren't like, yeah, let me give the boss feedback. But I crave it because I want to always be growing, like Chief Victorian said. And I recently had an experience with my husband. He asked me a question. It was so simple. And then later I was like, I loved that. That was so great. So I think us putting that into practice, like asking people questions, it's just a really, really big deal. It is for me at least. So.
Good. Chief Victorian.
I think what makes me feel most appreciated and valued is when I get a text message or somebody whispers softly in my ear that I have impacted their way positively. And, I didn't realize, I'm getting all emotional now. So, I spent 28 years with the Houston Police Department. And when I came here for my swearing in, they asked me, how many people would you like to invite? I said, I think I'll probably have about 50 come in from Houston. And then the invite started growing. And I was like, okay, I need about 65 spots. And then I had to change it. Okay, no, I need about 100 because I was getting text message, family members, and just the show of support that day and the words of encouragement, and then things that people would whisper to me or wrote in a card that I had done that had impacted their life in some kind of way. The fact that they would drive 3 hours from Houston was enough for me. But just to know that I have had an impact on somebody's life and something that I said or done can help them impact somebody else's life has been tremendous to me.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Lindsey Warren, what makes you feel valued and appreciated?
Well, at first thought with this question, I immediately said, gifts and flowers, right? Gifts and flowers, everyone. But I think what makes me feel valued in my personal life is a little different from what makes me feel valued in my professional life. Gifts and flowers still in my personal life, but in my professional life, it's very simple. A thank you. Just saying thank you. And then also especially as a woman of color, being seen, being heard, and being respected. Someone said this previously, I too find myself being the only woman in boardrooms. It has been my entire career, so I've worked a great deal with a lot of men. And so you aren't often seen, heard, or respected when you're in these, types of environments, negotiating $1 million deals or whatever the case may be. But nowadays, whether it's in my business life or my life as a professor, a text message from a student who has graduated and who's telling me, thank you for making me do in the workplace. Or thank you, Dr. Lindsey Warren, for That makes me tear up, because now they've graduated, they've moved on, and they're letting their light shine, and they're remembering, and, just thank you is enough for me nowadays.
Very good. Genevieve.
I definitely feel appreciated and valued when I'm heard, but something that I love that will happen with either clients or friends is they'll call and go, hey, will you look at this for me? Like, I have this graphic or I have this idea, and kind of when they ask me for advice. And so that makes me feel valued and appreciated, that I have something to offer and contribute to help make their business or their product or their life a little bit better. And so if I can help shore that up for them or teach them how to do it in a different way, then that's really fun.
Well, ladies, I hope you all feel valued and appreciated, especially for spending this time with us. I know I have learned so much. I know our viewers out there have as well. And Waco is so blessed to have you here. And thank you. Thank you. You may get some flowers out of this deal, too. I don't know. Not just saying. That might be. But we have some door prizes to give away. Yeah, that's fun, too, as well. We're going to do some drawings for some wonderful door prizes. If your name is drawn, your gift will be available for you to pick up here at the chamber offices between 8 and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. So, first of all, do we have these to show? Do we have a Vanna White to show off these? We have, first of all, a Kate Spade purse with Kate Spade office supplies provided by Extraco Insurance. Come on, let's put that on. Oh, it's in the bag. Oh, it's already beautifully wrapped and everything. Okay, here we go. Oh, they're digging it out. Meanwhile, I will tell you, oh my gosh, Kim Patterson with McLennan Community College. Look at you. Kim is going to rock that. That is beautiful. All right, congratulations, Kim. Date night, dinner for two at DeCamp, please, and a $150 Massage Envy gift card provided by Capstone Mechanical.
Can you draw my name?
Well, I'm digging. If it's in here, I might. We'll put it that way. Here we go. Paige Ledoux from Cargill. All right. Somebody out there is going, yay! Very good. All right. Number 3 is a Top Golf VIP experience. Anybody been to Top Golf? All right. Yeah. It is so fun. This entitles the winner to a 12-person event. It includes 2 hours of play in 2 climate-controlled golf bays, food, and non-alcoholic beverages. All righty. And we have Juliana Bullard of Ascension. Very good. A headshot. This is a photography package, includes makeup and hair from 20 Toes Photography. And she's amazing. She is amazing. All right. Michelle Kelly with the Centex Waco United Youth Sports. So, Michelle Kelly, you got a headshot coming your way from 20 Toes. A $50 Visa gift card provided by Community Bank and Trust. That always works, wherever it's tried. Chana Bean from Bean Wealth Management Group. Am I saying her name right, Chana? All right, very good. Congratulations. Downtown Day of Fun for you and 3 friends provided by Premier ER and Urgent Care. Hopefully that fun doesn't get you into their offices. But it includes $150 at Posh Spa and Lounge, the downtown location, $50 at Southern Roots Brewing Company, and here's where it could get tricky, $100 at Waco Axe. So just be careful with the axe is. But that is a fun activity. So anybody thrown axes up here? Oh, yeah, all right, good. All right, and the winner is Angela Steffen from Shipsters. All right. As we finish up today, we want to thank our sponsors one more time. That was our last drawing, so let me again thank these. We couldn't do things without our sponsors, right? Ascension Providence is our platinum sponsor, our diamond sponsor, Cargill Protein, our sapphire sponsors, again, JRBT, Extraco Banks, RBDR, and Kelly Realtors. And our additional wonderful sponsors and contributors are Camille Johnson Realtors, the First National Bank of Central Texas, Waco Cardiology, Action Rental, and Green Life Interiors. We do hope that you have been inspired and empowered and challenged today as we have offered you these tools and perspectives to help further develop your leadership skills. We want you to stay tuned for information about our wonderful Athena Award. This is the Athena nominations that will be opening up on June 28th, so coming up. And then our fabulous Serving Summit and Athena Awards Luncheon will be, get it, in person, November 18th at the Carlene Bright Pavilion. Until then, thank you so much for being with us, and have a great day.